Okay, we'll give it, I'll actually set the timer this time. So, all right, ready?
Yes.
Okay, I'm gonna start you out by asking, if we were to add a woman to Mount Rushmore, who do you think it should be?
Looking back at all the influential women in our time and the current stage that we're living in the United States, one word that I would use to describe our current state is polarized. To pick any woman is such a difficult feat because we are so polarized between political parties and political ideologies. But one woman will never split these two ideologies, and that's Rosa Parks. I truly believe that putting Rosa Parks on a 2024 version of Mount Rushmore would be perfect because everybody can agree that she is an individual and a woman that everybody relied on and everybody leans on as being so influential in our United States history.
You know, Maggie, I'm going to follow up with a political question. Just hours ago, we know that President Biden and former President Trump are going to have two debates. If you're on that panel, what question would you ask each of those gentlemen and why?
I would ask them both what their biggest priority going into, or if they were elected to be the next United States president for the upcoming term, what their biggest priority would be. There's a number of questions that I could ask both of these candidates, but I believe that we already have so much content of both of their ideologies and both of their opinions. Going into office, I would want to know what they're specifically focusing on for the next 4 years.
And, my question was a little bit, what should you ask each of them? A different question. What would you ask the current president and the former president? A specific question. You're right about content, though.
If I could ask them upcoming, so like if I could you repeat the question?
Yeah, which different question would you ask each candidate? President Biden and former President Bush. What different question would you ask each of them as you're coming out of the gate question?
Former President Donald Trump or
Mhm. Both of them.
okay.
You have two questions to ask.
Sorry, I thought you
And
said Bush. I'm so
and
sorry.
I'm sorry if I did. Excuse me. I have licorice in my mouth.
No, all good. For President Joe Biden, I would come out the gates, and if I could talk to him right now, I would ask him how he's going to further approach uprising on college campuses. Right now in May 2024, this is obviously one of the most prominent issues in our headlines, but it seems like not a lot of political action or political statements are being taken, especially with him being in office. Now, with Donald Trump, I would approach him and ask him how he's going to navigate the allegations against him and his recent trials if he were to go into office for the next 4 years.
Thank you.
Oh, I thought I was on mute. So recently, within the last week or so, WNBA star Brittany Griner's memoir was published about her time in Russia. It's entitled Coming Home. What are your thoughts on how much effort the United States should put into bringing one individual back?
I think something with the Brittany Griner story is how publicized it's been. And I'm curious to know how much effort the United States has actually put into bringing her back to the States with how much it's being publicized. Because she's such a big public figure, I feel as though maybe it's been emphasized a little bit too much and it's been exaggerated how much effort the United States has actually put into it. But if it's true how much the media has publicized it, that we're putting so much energy into one individual, I think it'd be important to take a step back and focus on the masses rather than one individual bringing back to the United States.
So this week, Wisconsin became the first state to invest $100 million in pensions in Bitcoin. What do you think about the Bitcoin future? Is it the way to go, or are we making a mistake?
Technology and especially Bitcoin has obviously blown up within what I would believe as the last 5 years. And I think investing $100 million into Bitcoin is taking a huge risk. My sister is someone who is truly into Bitcoin and investing money like that. but she recently lost a few grand as a few days ago due to getting hacked and her account getting hacked. I think technology and investing money online is such a huge risk to take. And to see a state taking this type of risk and putting that much money into it is something I don't really support, but I would like to know more about it.
Okay. Do you think technology is taking jobs away or creating them at this point in our society?
With the recent uprisings with ChatGPT and AI, a lot of people are very fearful of ChatGPT and AI taking away jobs. While I can understand this viewpoint because AI and technology has so much power it holds, I believe it's actually creating jobs. One side you have to think of is that as technology advances, this technology has to be maintained by someone. With this, there's both ways that you can have this. You can have jobs taken away from technology, but there's also so many jobs that are created in order to maintain and ensure that technology is doing the right job.
With that being said, do you think schools should be trying to integrate more AI and allowing things like ChatGPT in the classroom, or do we try to maintain a more traditional approach?
I'm a firm believer that AI is only beneficial for us. I believe that while it can be argued that AI is taking away from, say, academic honesty or producing real work with essays, there's also the aspect that AI is having a tutor with you at all times. Recently, Sal Khan, the CEO and founder of Khan Academy, has integrated a chat GPT online chat box on his website that allows you to ask mathematical questions and science questions to the chat box, and the chat box will help, but it won't give directly the answer. I think utilizing AI technology in this aspect will only be beneficial for the classroom, but I still believe we need to have that face-to-face conversation in the classroom to provide for maximum learning.
Within the last 2 weeks, we had a 14-year-old boy in the western part of the state who was hell-bent on taking weapons to school and shooting them. Well, they got him and they stopped him from that. That's the big question. Should we arm teachers or should we not arm teachers to protect the students that are in their classroom? What's your take on that?
In order to protect students within a classroom, I think I understand arming teachers in the classroom, but also you have to think about the other side of fear. Is having a weapon in the classroom going to be distracting for students that will be out of fear, knowing that there's a gun in the classroom at all times? Rather than taking the approach to arm all teachers within a classroom, I think something that we can do is put metal detectors in schools. While this is a big investment, I was recently at Racine Case High School in Kenosha, Wisconsin, and I noticed that they had metal detectors at every single entrance within their school. I think taking an approach like this would be more beneficial and would take away the fear aspect of protecting our students in the classroom.
So NASA has put a lot of effort into the Artemis program, which the goal is, of course, to help set up the moon as a base camp, but also one of the highlights of the program is that it will be the first woman and the first person of color that are going to be on the moon with this mission. It's very expensive, very time consuming. Do you believe that that is a good use of our resources, or could we be putting that money and time and effort towards something else here on our base camp on Earth?
I understand in some aspects wanting to continue with our technology and continue with our leaps and bounds with outer space and sending a woman to space and sending our first person of color to space. But I truly believe that there's more issues on our Earth that we should be worrying about and allocating money towards. With this, I think it's important that we have all the different departments within the cabinet of the United States that allows the legislative branch to allocate different funds towards different aspects. But I think we need to step back and take a look at how much money is really being put towards this NASA project and could it potentially be put somewhere else in the current day and age.
What is one thing that you wish we had asked you tonight that we have not covered yet?
I wish that you asked me what my biggest failure in life is, because I think it's a story that's really shaped me into the individual I am today. And I would love to share that story with you.
All right, well, maybe in the next one then. Because that was time.
Yeah.
All right. How do you feel about that?
I don't think it was very good.
No?
I think I approached, like, I didn't know fully a lot of the
Current event stuff.
real world current events. I think I need to educate myself more in those aspects.
Yeah, I felt like you handled them all really well, though.
Mm.
Some
Really
of them you
did.
obviously you knew more about than others, and that showed. But I didn't feel like you were blindsided by anything. The Mount Rushmore. So happy that you had put some thought into that, and that you knocked that one, I thought, right out of the park, right at the start. The only thing that I would say to add, and I doubt that anybody would question who is Rosa Parks and what did she do, but I don't think you even stated what it was that she did or mentioned the civil rights movement. So I do think that's important to tie that in just in case, just to, but I loved that you talked about how our country would never be split on the perspective of Rosa Parks. And I thought that was a really good answer. Presidential debates. Bob
And
asked,
I'm sorry if I flubbed that up, by the way. I apologize,
okay.
Maggie.
that's well, and
Okay.
I thought you asked initially, what would you ask each of them?
Right,
And she said that
exactly.
she would ask both of them the same thing, which is, what is your biggest priority? So I felt like she kind of answered that, but I guess you were looking for something more specific.
Yeah, each
One.
man a different question. But again, I'm sorry for flipping that up. And if I said Bush, slap me the next time you see me.
I
good.
didn't hear Bush, but that, you know, obviously there's a little communication issue there, but it's fine. I felt like you handled it just fine. The WNBA, I was super impressed that you knew that. I really didn't know anything about that at all. And the efforts to bring her home, I would be a little bit concerned about ever saying we should leave an American behind, because Biden's taken a lot of heat for that right now, because the current hostages still being held, which is causing a lot of issues with the whole Gaza situation and in Palestine and Israel. So that could be super politically divisive to say we're just going to let that one go. So, but I think you were on the right path in saying, was it exaggerated? Are we making a bigger deal out of it because she's a celebrity?
And I think that's a good one. If you bring up the celebrity thing, you might also want to say that there's a middle-aged contractor who's been over there in prison for 3 years, and she got out in what, 10 or 11 months.
Yeah. There's the Wall Street Journal reporter as well. That's not who you were talking about, right, Bob? The Wall Street Journal reporter?
I think he accidentally muted
That
himself.
we exchanged her.
Yeah.
We exchanged her for a very dangerous, well, potential terrorist, literally.
You're
So
talking about
that's not
Griner?
come up. Yeah, we're talking about Griner, and that was the swap. But I think you handled that well, and she took it. The other thing too, as an athlete, going over to, any place, if you're going to the Paris Games, those athletes are told in and out protocol, which you can and cannot do. And she says, I forgot about it. Come on. You're given so much coaching. And she just had a lack of, she thinks she's special. And well, she got special treatment. And I just don't buy what she's put in the book. I don't buy what she told Robin Robbins on Good Morning America. I forgot.
All right.
So, there's a lot there. I think you handled it. But again, that potentially could come up because she is a female athlete. And I'm sure you're not going to be the only female athlete at national.
Right. And it's a good comparison to bring up. there was a lot, she came home and they did a lot to negotiate to make that happen. And yet there's literally, Biden has not mentioned the hostages pretty much at all since they were taken. So that's a pretty distinct difference in terms of like how much do we value each American life, or should they all be equally important? Okay, Bitcoin, huge risk. I like that you put your sister's personal information in there. I thought that was good detail. A lot of people are, feeling like it's a huge risk. The accounts being hacked is certainly a concern. So I felt like you were informed pretty well on that one, and that didn't seem to throw you. That was good.
No.
And I love the fact that you brought the technology up too. That is so very, very important right here locally with Ascension Hospital. I mean, hundreds of hospitals are taken because a hacker says you can't get into your own files.
Yeah.
And so that hacking thing, I think, is so real. And that's been the problem the last 10 days here of local hospitals, but Ascension's hospitals all over the US. So that hacking, it could be done by the proverbial kid living in his mom's basement, or it could be somebody over in Europe in a communist country. It can happen anywhere. So I think you did well with that.
Yeah, agree. Then you went into technology and jobs. I thought you handled that well as well, that the technology needs to be maintained. We need people to do it, which led right into the school of AI. I really liked your answer about how it's a tutor that you can talk to at all times, that we need to embrace it instead of looking for ways to squash it. We need to figure out how it can help us. Like, I love your answer. And you had a specific example about the chat GPT online chat box that helps but doesn't give the answers. And then the next question,
Here, can I ask you something? What is that chat box thing? I heard it. What is that?
So, Khan Academy, it's called, like, they call it Khan Mingo. It's like a person that's like on the other side of Khan Academy, their website, which is like all STEM-based learning.
Right,
And
right.
with Khan Mingo specifically, they're introducing it for math problems. You can ask Khan Mingo, like, oh, how should I approach this problem? What should be the first step I take? But it'll never straight up give you the answer. It'll only give you like hints or tutor you on how to do it. And it's completely free, which is
That's the
also,
question I was getting. Okay, gotcha. Yeah, I think you need to bring that up too, the fact that it is free, because you
yeah.
have this whole thing of, those people who don't have internet access and everything like that. And Khan has actually been around 15, 20 years, and the free thing is what I was trying to think, that it kind of has an equal playing field. It takes the
Okay.
student who wants to go there and get it. Gotcha.
Okay, that went into the school shooting, attempted shooting question. Your answer was about metal detectors versus arming teachers. Let me just throw one other possibility out there.
The doors.
What's that?
The doors.
The doors, right? Locking the doors, right? You can always have those options as well. And then the other thing, a lot of teachers are not comfortable handling firearms, and
Yeah.
alone to me is a pretty good reason why we should not put a gun in their hands. However, if we just had the scenario that teachers may be armed, that they may have a safe box in their room.
Yeah, I
Like,
was
you know
gonna
what I mean?
I was gonna approach it with, I was going to start with, it's like the Second Amendment right for teachers to have a gun. Like, it's totally like fine, and it's up to the teachers if they want to do that. That's what I was gonna approach it with.
It could be that there's not a single teacher in the school that's armed. You know what I mean? But the fact that people don't know removes that basic target on our foreheads, that we are unarmed and just sitting there as an easy target. You know what I mean? So that's another scenario that you could, like, if you had certain people within the building that maybe not everybody knew who they were, or, but they would have to go through the training and have the, all the proper protocols in place for them to be able to be armed, but it wouldn't necessarily be public knowledge of who and where they were armed.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? That's another way to
No.
mitigate the fear factor, and
Yeah.
also not to mandate somebody to be armed. I mean, that would just be an absolute revolt for when I think about teachers.
Oh, that would be a disaster if you guys gave me anything more than a
You have to have
pea
guns.
shooter. But I just listened on that topic, that idea. I just listened to Liz Cheney's book, and she pretty much recounts the minute by minute stuff that was going on with the January 6th at the Capitol, and makes a lot of mention of some of the younger senators, congressmen, representatives that were recently retired military or had left the military and gone into public office. They actually like took the weapons from the Capitol Police because they were better prepared to attack someone. Yeah.
That's crazy.
Yeah, they took them to, to use for protection when they were all locked in that
Yeah.
room. It was one fellow in particular, and he was like, I know that I have been trained to shoot someone in a combat situation. I don't know that those guards at the Capitol that have weapons can actually do that.
Right.
So, in the classroom, I mean, just because the gun's there, does that mean that it would be
It's-
used even?
Right.
you
Right.
know?
Yeah. Yeah. So those are all just things to think about. With and you could have countered as well to say, in that particular case, that he wasn't successful in getting into the building.
Yeah.
Because the doors were locked, right?
Mhm.
Which is a huge, huge win for schools,
Doors.
Mhm.
right?
Okay,
Okay.
there was another aspect, and Ellen, you could tell me if I'm off. Since whatever they talked about removing police liaisons in schools, do we still have police liaisons? I have
We
no
do.
idea. I know there
We
was a
do in
call.
Brookfield. Yeah.
Okay, I gotcha. And
Police what
that
zones?
might
The
police
SROs.
liaison.
Yeah. Yeah.
And so, I mean, that's another thing, beefing them up and the familiarity. And if you have the metal detectors, obviously that police person is there. And if it goes off, hey, they're there and have a presence. But I wasn't sure if that was active or not active, because some districts 2 years ago say, get rid of police liaisons, which I thought was stupid, but
Right.
okay.
Right. Well, and a really great story to go with that, Maggie, is what happened at prom for us with Officer Cater. He's
Yeah, right on the
What?
scene.
Yeah, we had at the Grand March at the school, a student
Uh-huh.
got to the end of the runway and collapsed, and it turned out she had a complete cardiac arrest.
Yeah.
And the police officer that is assigned to our building was there and jumped right in, did CPR, and she survived. But
Wow.
I mean, like that, they're not just there to prevent shooters. Like there's a lot of good that can come from having a police officer on site. So
Mhm.
Wow.
That's kind of a nice antidote with a good happy ending about having
Yeah.
people at school. So, and trust me, if you drop that one in an interview, they're not going to forget about
Right.
what happened at prom, right?
Yeah.
So, right. Okay, and then we went into the Nassau question. I thought you had a good answer in terms of maybe we need to look at how to allocate our resources here on Earth. That
Yeah.
there may be bigger needs. You didn't have to throw it completely under the bus, but kind of hinted that there were maybe more pressing things to spend money on Earth. And then it just ended with the biggest failure, which we didn't get to hear because I cut you off.
Can I ask too, I mean, when you say there might be more pressing things, do you have a specific idea of something that would be more important here on planet Earth?
My mind immediately goes to public school funding, because, well, we live right down the road from MPS schools, Milwaukee Public School District, and to think about the funding that they have versus what Brookfield has, maybe we need to focus on more inner city schools and the resources that they have, the teachers that get hired there, or what books they have available. And so my mind immediately, like when it comes to funding and government allocating money towards different departments, I immediately think the Department of Education.
Gotcha. Do you want to
Ellen?
do another practice round? Because I should just stop the recording and